think it's Colin O'Brady he wrote a book called The 12-Hour Walk. And so I read the book. It was suggested to me by another nurse coach, actually, and decided to do that challenge. And so it's essentially spending 12 hours outside in nature, disconnected. So no phone, no companion, no dog to walk next to me. Just me and my thoughts for 12 hours outside. I can walk as much or little as I want. I can sit down as much or little as I want. But just spending that time solo, and how transformational that can be, because we don't hardly ever take even 2 minutes by ourselves, let alone 12 hours.
In this episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan, I sit down with Tracy Weber, a registered nurse and coach who made a bold career pivot into holistic health. But her journey wasn't just about changing jobs. It was about healing, growth, and rediscovering herself. Going through a divorce, Tracy found solace on the hiking trails, using nature as a path to clarity and renewal. We'll talk about her transition from traditional nursing to holistic wellness, the lessons she's learned along the way, and how hiking became a powerful tool for both physical and emotional healing. If you've ever felt stuck in your career or personal life, or are just interested in hearing more about the power of nature, this conversation is for you. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan. I'm Rachel, and I started this podcast during my 29th and last year as a high school teacher. The goal of my work with Life's Next Lesson Plan, as well as my Live and Learn Patreon, is to create a connection where we are all teachers. We all have lessons and stories to share that can help others. I'm so fortunate to be able to extend the four walls of my previous classroom to an unlimited audience, where we can all learn from each other. And my guests are some of the most inspirational people with the best stories and lessons I know, which is why I want to share them with you. Their words are something everyone should hear. It is my hope that you are able to take away something from each episode to apply to your own life, whether that be a career search, path to a more fulfilling life, or new ideas on current topics. Today, I'm so excited to bring to you Tracy Weber. I was just saying to her before we started recording that there are many facets that you'll hear in her background and her journey today, that we could go down multiple paths. So I'm excited to hear her story and to share it with you. I've never met Tracy in person. In fact, I found her online in a hiking Facebook group. I was looking for guests to talk about different topics. And definitely she is going to talk a little bit about hiking today, but I think, like I said, a lot of her background and her journey is going to resonate with my listeners, and you'll hear why, because she's made a lot of decisions that I think we have had to make in our time, and hopefully that will resonate with you. So I'm going to let Tracy talk a little bit more about her background, and then we will get into her story of her journey.
Thanks, Rachel. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. Yeah, so my background actually started, I don't even know if I mentioned this to you, but my background was in biology. That was what my undergrad was in. But I really quickly found out that there's not much that can be done in that field. At least you can't progress very far. So fast forward, I began getting interested in healthcare. So I got my CNA license and also went back to school for nursing, which I swore I would never go back to school after my first undergrad, but quickly found that that was the path for me. I practiced for a few years and very quickly found myself getting burned out in that field of nursing and didn't really know what to do. I was spinning my wheels for a while. Didn't want to throw away all the years of schooling that I had put in, but also didn't want to go back to school for a super long time for more studies. So I went to a career fair and instantly fell in love with massage therapy. For some reason, I just felt a calling to go that path. And really, since I started that, I never looked back. Um, I did massage therapy for a number of years, about 3 years overlapping with my nursing career, and found that I could fly on my own doing the massage and just went that route. And as the years went by, I added different teachings to my repertoire. I took different classes and found that I was really enjoying what I was doing. Did some training in yoga and since became certified. I also did training in Qigong and got certified in that. Did a few specific trainings in massage, including lymphatic drainage, craniosacral therapy. All this to say, I was really kind of immersed in the holistic field and in the process got my own chronic health conditions. My family got some chronic health conditions. And so all of this experience really helped me in the process also, which is a little bit different path, but basically helped myself to heal as I was also helping clients that I served to feel better. Along the way, I found that I was really doing a lot of patient education, if you will, which came naturally to me as a nurse. That's a big part of what we do is educating our patients and clients. And so after a number of years, I realized that's what I was doing all along, in tandem with the massage therapy. And so I went back to school again and did my coaching certification that was specific for nurses to become coaches. So there's a little bit different of an edge to be a nurse coach, which doesn't mean I coach nurses, but it means I'm a nurse that does coaching. And so that's kind of a summary of what I've done kind of through the years and kind of come full circle. Now I offer a little bit of all of that. Plus I do some traditional nursing as far as IV therapy. I do a really specific treatment called electroanalgesia, which is for pain relief, wound healing, mental health issues, and just a whole slew of benefits that can deliver.
Oh, wow. I've never heard about that. Can you just explain that briefly for us?
The electroanalgesia?
Yes.
Yeah, so I call it EA for short. It's much easier to say. But basically, it's the highest FDA cleared pulsed electricity, essentially. Some people liken it to a TENS unit, but it's very, very different. And it really helps to target inflammation. It helps to improve nerve healing and, just a whole bunch of benefits that machine can deliver.
Oh, wow. I have never heard of that. So two things that jumped out when you were just describing your background, because I can identify with you saying you felt this sort of like pull to massage therapy. Like, how would you describe like the feeling that you got, or just, that it either a moment or maybe reflecting just during your journey? Can you just unpack that a little bit more? Because I think a lot of the listeners are kind of either searching for that feeling, or that is definitely something that I felt too.
I almost describe it as a full body yes. When I went to that career fair that day, a long, long time ago, I went to the booth and I talked to the people that were running it. And I think I even got a chair massage that day, which I hadn't previously had a bunch of massage experience, receiving massage myself. But it was just like, it was an instant knowing, almost like a gut reaction, like, I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't know when, but this is something I need to do.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. And then I almost felt like a bit of relief briefly, like, okay, this is like the answer. And there's so many unanswered questions that come after that of just like, what is the path and how long, like, you're right. Like, okay, then there's a little bit of anxiety that kicks in after that. But it's kind of like, I need to do this. I feel really good about it. And then like, let the planning begin, right?
Exactly. And having that trust in the process.
Yeah, exactly. This will all work out and I can do it. And then
even trusting my own decision making, trusting myself that regardless of the why, that this was the next step for me.
Absolutely, because a lot of people are going to ask questions about why you're doing this and, why are you abandoning what you've done? And you have to feel good about your decision.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that jumped out to me, just because I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the healthcare part of it, but I didn't realize when you said there's different opportunities that if you have the healthcare background to go into the coaching. Can you kind of explain that if we have listeners who have worked in healthcare, just kind of what you mean by that and how that works, like what that path might look like? When you talk about coaching, you're talking about like wellness coaching. Am I right in that?
I do a combination of wellness and life coaching.
Okay.
And I think for me, it's very difficult to separate those two things because to me, wellness incorporates all facets of life. So it's not just your physical health, your mental health, it's also your environmental health, it's your professional, life, it's your relationships, it's all of those things kind of combined into one. And so, yeah, there's different types of coaching. There's, people that focus on weight loss. There's people that focus on chronic health conditions. There's, people that have had no medical background and people that have all the medical background. So there's not a lot of regulation in that industry. And so for me, it was important to go to a program that had a professional background. And the fact that the program really only allowed RNs to do the program spoke to me. It was, again, one of those just intuitive hits that I was like, yes, this is my next step. And it was just kind of that inner knowing that because they had that same background as I did in nursing, there's kind of that similar thread in that way that we can all connect on a different level. Not to say that any other program is better or worse. It's just this was the right one for me because of what I've done previously.
Okay. So what does that look like? Is it a 2-year program? Do you do it online? Like in your experience, how did that work for you? It's not going back for another 4-year degree, correct?
Oh my goodness. No.
Exactly.
Now I kind of laugh because I just feel like I'm a forever learner, always taking classes and excited to learn the next thing. But no, I took mine during COVID. I didn't obviously know that going into it, but I was in the program for about 4 months before COVID hit. So it was aimed to be an October through May program, if I remember the dates right. And it ended up being October through October just because of all the COVID nonsense. But it was all done online. And then we, of course, like any other nursing program and probably most coaching programs that are reputable, we had to do practices. First we'd practice with classmates, and then we would find people within our communities or our circles that wanted free coaching, pro bono coaching.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then, like you said, you keep getting additional certifications because you're passionate about it, right? You're like, wait, I could offer my clients this. And you yourself had benefited from some of the therapies that you were learning about as well. So it doesn't really feel like work or education, right? It's just fun.
Exactly. And the way I look at it is it's more tools in my toolbox that I could offer. So, we are all so individual that what works for you is not going to work for the next person. So to me, like having a variety of tools that I can choose from to help people is super important. It's critical to what I do.
So when you made this, not a career switch, but sort of just a pivot, does it look like now like a brick and mortar business and online? Are you all online? How does that look with your coaching business?
Very much a hybrid model. I do have an in-office practice where I can see patients and clients for various services, anything from massage to IV therapy to coaching. But I also do offer some of those services online. Obviously, you can't do massage online, but I do a lot of the coaching online. And that provides just another level of a way to connect for people. So it takes some of the excuses out. Like I don't have time. I don't have the ability to get to your office. you're thousands of miles away because I've worked with people all across the globe. Um, so it takes some of those excuses out when we can just meet face to face over a computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different, energetically when you're not face to face in person. But in some cases, I find that it allows people to almost dig a little bit deeper and be a little bit more vulnerable when they're quote unquote hiding behind the screen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I'm always fascinated, and I think other people too listening might be interested in knowing how does that look going from I'm a nurse today and then I have a career pivot. You said that part of your business is brick and mortar and part of it is online. How did that look, right? Did you buy a place? How did that look? Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, so actually, it goes back a little bit further to when I was in school for massage therapy, and I needed to do an internship. And so there was a very well-respected massage therapist within my community that I asked if I could shadow her and do my internship there. She graciously accepted. And after, I can't remember the timeline, but about a month or maybe 5, 6 weeks, something like that. I was acquainted with her and her other colleagues, and they were acquainted with me, and it was really a seamless fit. And they invited me to join their practice after I graduated. So there was a time for it was about 2.5 years that I practiced part-time in nursing and part-time in massage therapy, renting my space. And then after about 2.5-ish years, I made that decision. I was steady enough with my practice, and I had someone tell me, when are you going to spread your wings and fly? And I thought, okay, yeah, now's the time. What am I waiting for? Why am I waiting? And so after that timeline, I just decided to jump and have been all in ever since.
That's awesome when you can kind of phase out of one and, dabble in and make sure you like it and get used to the next. And then it sort of organically grows. And there you go. I think everybody's journey is different. So I appreciate you sharing that insight because I think myself personally, I'm guessing other people want to know, like, how does that look? Do you just transition one day? Or like you said, it's a 2.5 year process. And then that you're being pulled in the new direction. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
We're going to move on to, of course, because this is Life's Next Lesson Plan, we always talk about our education roots a little bit. So I typically ask my guests to prepare a funny or memorable story from their education journey. And the real reason I brought you here, I think, is related to this story a little bit more about your hiking and backpacking experience. So can you share that memory with us?
Yeah, it doesn't really have to do too much with education other than it happened during my undergrad degree.
Yeah.
But I was working in a lab at the time, and two friends from the lab invited me to go backpacking with them. I thought, okay, this is great. I'm getting to love the outdoors, which I hadn't grown up a whole lot knowing how to backpack or hike. But during college, I definitely started to develop a love for that. So great. We planned this big trip. I think it was up to Steamboat Springs or close to that area in Colorado. Just some of the really most pristine hiking available. And so we decided there's three of us. So we're going to divvy up who brings what. And so one of the people said, okay, well, you bring a dinner. And, also, of course, you need to bring your sleeping bag and your pad to sleep on and so forth. And, I'll bring a tent and I'll bring a breakfast, whatever, so we split it all out. So in the course of this conversation, they were like, okay, well, also we're going to be hiking. So we're going to be burning a lot of calories. And one of the people that's going with us also on a normal day has quite a good party appetite. So if you're going to bring pasta, make sure you bring it cooked because it's hard to boil noodles at altitude. So I was like, great. And, I also knew they loved things like banana bread. So I was like, cool, I'll just bring, pasta with a sauce and a nice salad and some banana bread. So cooked all this up, packed my Coleman sleeping bag. I packed my exercise mat because that's all I had and all I knew that would be some cushioning for under my sleeping bag. Packed it all in my backpack. We got barely up the trail and I was literally feeling like I was going to die.
Oh.
And they're all looking at me like, wow, she's such a wimp. Like, what's her problem? And, we'd stop periodically for breaks because obviously we're at altitude and hiking and whatnot. We're not in any hurry. We're just enjoying the time away. And pretty soon they're like, what is in your pack? First they lifted it up. They're like, holy crap, that is heavy. So I explained to them what all I had. And needless to say, it was a good lesson for me because I had this 1 pound of cooked pasta, which translates into what, like probably 3 or 4 pounds once it's cooked with the water, banana bread, sauce for the pasta, a nice salad, and then this big old heavy sleeping bag that really is not appropriate for backpacking. It's just not. It's not a cold weather bag, and a heavy old exercise mat.
They're like, newbie, there's this newbie over here.
Oh. At that point, they were gracious enough to help split the load even further, knowing that they were partly to blame for this situation.
Yeah, telling you to bring all this heavy cooked pasta along.
Exactly. But let me tell you, we ate well.
That's important. Good. That is a good story. That would so be me. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So this obviously lets us know that you have a love for the outdoors and nature and hiking. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the role that plays in your life and how that benefits you?
It's really been a gradual thing for me. When my kids were young, I didn't take a whole lot of time to go out and do things for myself like many parents do not do. And gradually, I knew that I needed to do something for me. And so it started with just, walking the dogs or the kids around the neighborhood or going for some interval training. As the kids got a little bit older, I'd go take them on a trail somewhere, for shorter kid-size hikes. And every year, pretty much for our vacation, we would choose usually a hiking vacation. If not a hiking vacation, it would tend to be something that was outdoorsy where we could ride bikes or, go camping or kayaking, different outdoor activities. And so continued that process through the years. Fast forward, I ended up getting a divorce, needed to find some coping strategies and started to really step up my game as far as exercise. And, I got out on the trail, I would say initially every other week, when I didn't have my kids, I'd go hit a trail somewhere. And gradually it just became more evident, kind of like that intuitive hit, like this is where I need to be. And so I found myself most weekends, at least, going out on a trail somewhere. And then gradually that became, when the weather was cooperative, I would get out on a trail midweek, if I had an early work day, so to speak. I'd try to carve out some time to get outside, whether it was on a trail or walking the dogs. And I've just never looked back. Now it's an integral part of who I am and what I do and what I enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember during the pandemic, and the nice thing during that time is that we did have more time to go into nature, but I don't know how I would have survived without the beautiful trails that I lived nearby at the time and the water. And I was going through a divorce myself during the pandemic. I had moved out 2 months before the world shut down. And at that time, my daughter was a middle school girl. And so we spent some time on the trail near our house. And she just said about a week ago, I really miss that trail that we used to live by. And sometimes when she's running, she'll go drive over there just to be on that trail. And everybody underestimates, I think, until they have that experience of, it's like a kindred spirit. It's like nature holding your hand through a tough time is kind of how I explain it. So is that something that you talk about in your practice as well with your clients?
If it comes up, yeah, I'm very transparent with my clients, because I think if I'm not vulnerable, I don't invite them to be vulnerable. And so it does become, whether it's trail talk or something else, it does become very important that I share some of the things that I've been through and some of the trials I've had to endure and how I came out on the other side, because I think that instills a sense of hope for them, knowing that someone else has been through some stuff and has made it through, and that they can do that too. So yeah, very, very important.
And I think you had a 12-hour challenge or something that you undertook. Can you explain a little bit of that to us?
Yeah, I think it's Colin O'Brady he wrote a book called The 12-Hour Walk. And so I read the book. It was suggested to me by another nurse coach, actually, and decided to do that challenge. And so it's essentially spending 12 hours outside in nature, disconnected. So no phone, no companion, no dog to walk next to me, just me and my thoughts for 12 hours outside. I can walk as much or little as I want. I can sit down as much or little as I want. But just spending that time solo, and how transformational that can be, because we don't hardly ever take even 2 minutes by ourselves, let alone 12 hours. And so, just really getting to know yourself and what drives you, what frustrates you, what makes you sad, what makes you happy, all the thoughts that can run through your head in a 12-hour time span is pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the best and worst things of going through a divorce during the pandemic, is that the worst part of it was that you were isolated, because I couldn't just go even sit, in a friend's living room and cry or something, or meet them out for coffee. It was, January 2020. I was in a brand new apartment, and then 2 months later, here we go. You can't, I think, what do I want to say, distract yourself. You are forced in isolation to really reflect, like exactly what you're saying. And I spent a lot of time walking and thinking and reflecting, and definitely getting to know myself, and kind of thinking about what I wanted for the next chapter after we came out of the pandemic and I was alone, and what that was going to look like. So the worst part was that it forced me into that, but the best part is that I don't know that I would have done some of that work had that not been the case, because you have no choice but to really sit with your thoughts. And I had a previous guest on who, after retiring from teaching, which, she had a long career in, she turned to mindfulness and meditation and went on a bunch of silent retreats. And found that really useful and helpful to bridge sort of some of the emotions that she was feeling at that time. So this is interesting. I'm going to have to dig into that. The 12-hour walk. That sounds terrifying. But obviously, like I said, I can relate on some level just based on what I went through, and I trust your expert opinion. We're going to take a short break here for some ads and some Ask the Teacher Anything questions. Remember, you can submit these on social media or right on our website at lifesnextlessonplan.com. 100% of men and women have hormones. And with the increased presence of processed foods and environmental toxins, it's more important than ever to make mindful choices in the products we use every day. That's why I trust Hue and Grace, high-performing, clean products designed to support hormone health while reducing exposure to harmful chemicals. Because this topic has been my primary focus since ending birth control in 2024 in an attempt to regulate my changing midlife hormones, after making healthy swaps in my diet, personal care products, and exercise routine, I've been able to lower my dose of anxiety medication I once relied very heavily on, and have restored balance to my nervous system and cleared up the brain fog I was experiencing in perimenopause. Hue & Grace has played a key role in this transformation, offering safe, effective, non-toxic solutions that support my wellness journey. If you listened to episode 16 with certified Mayo Clinic health and wellness coach Tracy Danielson Mitchell, you heard our talk about the importance of hormone health. Coming in March, I'll be doing a deep dive into heart and hormone health on my Live and Learn Patreon, where I'll list all the tests, supplements, and product swaps that have helped me balance my hormones in my 50s. Plus, Tracy will be back to answer all your heart and hormone health questions at the end of the month. If you're on this journey with me and are interested in exploring Hue & Grace's trusted, non-toxic products, visit my link at hueandgrace.com/lessonplan to receive 10% off and free shipping. You can also reach out to me at any time with questions at nextlessonplan@gmail.com. Live and learn with me as we focus on living fully and feeling our best. Visit hueandgrace.com/lessonplan to see how easy it is to start making some healthy swaps on the way to non-toxic living. To those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that I value mental and physical wellness. Personally, I've worked with a few different coaches over the years and even been one myself. If you are looking for education and support in your own wellness journey, I would love to invite you to the wellness community I am currently in that keeps me accountable daily with my nutrition and movement. If you are a Facebook user, you can search for our free group called Team MG. This group is led by my coach, Megan Grimord, who is a certified trainer and nutrition coach. She offers lots of education and support for your wellness journey. If you want to get to know Coach Megan more, you can follow her on Instagram at all lowercase Megan, MEGAN _Grimord, GRIMORD, or even listen to her on episode 10 of the podcast. She has also created a discount code for my listeners. Just go to her website, www.team-mg.com, and enter code LessonPlan10 to get $10 off any of her premium coaching packages for the first month. Coach Megan is a busy mom like me who works full-time, so I appreciate her practicality mixed with some tough love to keep me going. There's that bell sound effect that I don't know why I think that's so funny. It's just there's not any good sound effects for transitions that I have found yet. So we are transitioning into the Ask the Teacher Anything portion of the podcast. And the first question today is, what has been my most popular guest episode and solo episode so far? So I think we are at like episode 28 or something right now, just to give the overview. And right now, my most popular guest episode is, I need a drum roll sound effect, episode 6 with guest Tom Duran. Everybody loves Tom Duran. And oh my goodness, I can't stop sharing his Cadillac Ranch Instagram reels because they're so cool. Watching that house from the beginning till now when it's livable is just amazing and so inspirational, and the story behind it is so heartwarming, and watching all of the guests they have come help them with the Cadillac Ranch, it's amazing. So if you haven't heard episode 6 yet with Tom Duran, it is a fan favorite apparently. Favorite solo episode so far, I think it's episode 7 on the Anxious Generation book by Jonathan Haidt and Rethinking Parenting, Screen Time, and School Pressure. And I actually did that episode on Life's Next Lesson Plan as a solo, but I did kind of a follow-up on Patreon, on my Live and Learn Patreon, called The 8-Second Attention Span and How Reading Can Rescue Our Minds in the Age of Distraction. And in that episode, I take it one step further because the Anxious Generation book talks about, with screen time, what it's doing to rewire kids' brains and the rise in anxiety and depression. And then just the fact that they're spending less time reading and their attention spans are going down. I dig a little bit more into that and actually some of the benefits of reading. I actually share an article that I go over with students in class, and I shared on Patreon actual words from my sophomores this year that they shared honestly about how they see their reading interest declining and their attention spans declining. And so that one, as Patreon tends to be, is a little bit more personal and specific. So yeah, that's been my most popular by far solo episode on the Anxious Generation. Second question is, what's the most memorable lesson you've learned from a guest so far? That is unfair, as I've learned something from every single guest. But I've been thinking a lot about, and I actually mentioned it in a recent episode as well, I've been thinking a lot about something that Michael Hernandez said in episode 20. And it wasn't his lesson, or it wasn't his intended lesson per se. It was just something that came up in our conversation. And this is what kind of spurred me to stop asking guests what their next goal is, because when I asked him, he had such a good answer that made me realize I shouldn't ask that question anymore. And he's so accomplished. And what's fascinating about that is that he shared that he doesn't set goals. And instead, not that he's not goal oriented, but instead he follows his curiosity. Oh, is there a better answer than that? Like, I did an entire episode 9 is about the power of curiosity in your life, the power of curiosity in education, how education should always be built around questions, what questions students want to answer, what problems they want to solve. Oh, that's like, I did an entire episode about that. And yeah, we should be following our values, which I talk a lot about, and we should be following our curiosity. And when I was talking to Brittany Emond in a recent episode, we talked about the fact that sometimes, because she's very goal-oriented, but she realized she always followed her curiosity. And she looked at it almost like she was quitting on her goals, but that maybe having goals in some respect can sort of pigeonhole you, because if you are so focused on the goal and staying on that track, you're not leaving yourself open to the possibilities that could happen that take you off track, that are actually better than what you could have planned while you were tunnel vision working on that goal. So my mind has just kind of been blown about this whole idea since episode 20 of like, someone who's very type A goal oriented has to see her life 10 years from now is just like going where the wind blows me and going towards something, that aligns with my values, which I'm working on obviously in this journey, and just what I want to learn about next. What's the next up and coming thing? If life has taught us nothing else, which I talk about with Michael, is that you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. And so you can set all of these goals and all of these plans, and they can get turned upside down. So that, to me, I think has been one of the most mind-blowing things that I've been reflecting a lot on. I'd be curious in hearing your thoughts about that too, and keep the questions coming. I'm really look forward to this segment each episode. I definitely feel like I could do an entire episode on this 12-hour walk, but after I check that out, maybe I'll have to circle back to you and come back to that, because that's really interesting.
If you decide to do it and you want someone to hold you accountable, just let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. That might be good in this career transition that I'm going through in the future. I'll have time maybe to try that out, but it does sound a little terrifying, so I want to just read up on it. Is he very encouraging in the book about the process? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
And for me, it was helpful to know that I had Jolene who recommended the book. Like she was sort of in my back pocket cheering me on. Like I knew she was there, even though I wasn't like texting her or calling her. Um, I touched base with her before I left. And then when I got back, and that was just a nice thing to have.
Did you actually camp? Did you leave your hometown? How did you do that?
I was in Iowa at the time, and there was a trail that I was very familiar with. And so I just showed up there at like, I think 4:30 or 5 because I needed to be done by a certain time. So it was dark when I started.
Mm-hmm.
And I just came prepared with a headlamp. But the sun was rising, and it was just a beautiful experience. I had that level of comfort. Like I knew the trails. I knew it was a safe place to go. Um, I knew there was a nature center there where I could go to the bathroom and get a drink if I ran out of whatever. So there were just a few things like that I looked at.
Interesting. Did you pack pounds of pasta and a salad for yourself to eat?
Absolutely not. But my car was there, so I could just leave my lunch in there. So really all I had on my back was like a journal and a pen. And I did bring my phone, just you never know.
Mm-hmm.
I had it on airplane mode, but if anything would happen, I had a way to reach someone in emergency. Or I took a few pictures. I allowed myself to do that just because part of my experience was enjoying the beauty.
Sure.
Well,
yeah, I would want proof and like memories to look back on from it. So yeah, I think that's sounded terrifying at first, like you're out there for 12 hours with no way to reach anybody. But I think that would make me feel better to at least know that it's there just in case.
Yeah, I just had airplane mode and, I knew there were benches and rocks where I was going so I could sit down and rest or meditate or whatever.
Does he outline this as something you should do alone, or have people done this with a buddy?
The idea is to do it alone.
Okay.
So you don't want to, I would say if you wanted to do it with a buddy, like for safety or something, like just be on, a quarter mile apart or something. Like that they're there, but you're not tempted or able to talk to them.
Sure. It's meant to be a reflective, mindful. I understand that. Okay.
Right.
Well, I might be circling back to you. This is intriguing to me. Yes. Okay. So speaking of being encouraging and giving people ideas for inspiration, can you talk to us a little bit? We're big on mentorship here at Life's Next Lesson Plan. So any mentors that stick out for you along your journey?
Definitely so. The biggest mentor I would say was the very first massage therapist that I mentioned earlier. Where I got my start. She was actually a nun, and she was in a small private practice with 3 other individuals. We were all independent contractors, and not only was she kind enough to let me shadow her while I was finishing school, but then also inviting me to join their group as a practitioner once I graduated and got my license. But she was such a kind, selfless person. Always compassionate, always, just had very thoughtful answers and responses if you were to have a conversation with her. And she was assertive, and I think myself and many people struggle with being assertive. And I think it's also very important, there's an art to being assertive without being mean or, other choice words that people would choose to describe it as. But I do think it's an important skill. And she modeled that in such a beautiful way. I don't know if I mentioned it, but she was a nun. And so in spite of that, it didn't matter what religion, what anything you were. She was just always very accepting and very open to share her journey and her experience and her insight, and I very much valued that.
Yeah, I always, wonder after interviewing all of these people and talking to them about either an experience or a person in their lives that sort of either change their path or really influence their path in some way, just like how life would be different without that experience or that person. It always makes me think about that. So I'm sure you feel lucky to have met her.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, she was really a foundation for my practice, is how I look at it. Not only could I learn from her when I shadowed her, but I could also just watch her on the day to day and see how she interacted with other people or with me or, whatever, and just handle things with such grace and such integrity.
Awesome. Well, I think we are ready to hear about the lesson that you brought for us today, which I think sort of ties everything we've talked about together. So it's perfect that led us here. So kind of hiking your way to wellness, and how, if we are interested in working this into our lives, which I am in my next chapter, I've only dabbled in it a little bit, but knowing some of the benefits and wanting to for sure be outside more was one of my values in this transition that I'm making. So excited personally to hear about this. And I'm sure we have some listeners as well who will be interested in your lesson today.
Yeah, I think my biggest lesson or takeaway is, no competition. There's no speed, there's no intensity, there's no set distance that's required. It's for me, it's a time for me, period. End of story. It's just, there's so many opportunities in nature to find well-being. So you can develop a different sense of peace. You can meditate. You can find your grounding or your center. Connecting to the senses can really be beneficial for mental well-being. Finding a sense of calmness. Sometimes I'll just go and I'll just take some deep breaths. I'll enjoy the sun. I'll enjoy feeling the earth beneath my feet, feeling how my body moves. Some days, at 50 plus, it moves better than others, and being accepting of all of that, and just being in that space, it helps me with clarity. When I'm struggling with something, I might go in nature to just sort of find my answers without pushing for the answers almost. As a side benefit, it improves my strength, it helps my circulation, it helps my mood. So, it's almost, for me, it's like exercising without exercising. It's not something I have to do. It's always something that I want to do. And to me, it's just that invitation to be more mindful.
Yeah, and something that you look forward to because at the end of it, you're always going to feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Where are some of your favorite places to go?
That's actually a loaded question.
Okay.
I'm still working on that.
Okay.
So I am new to the area that I'm living in, so not had a huge opportunity to explore. So I'm just kind of getting my feet wet in the area. But
Are there some past places that you used to really enjoy going?
Yeah, when I was in Iowa, I went to Mines of Spain or Swiss Valley Nature Center. Those were kind of my two go-tos. Here, like I said, in the Wisconsin area, I'm just getting my feet wet, but I love Governor Dodge. I've done some backpacking there. When I hike, like on a vacation, I love, love, love going to the mountains. For me, there's nothing grounding like being at a big old mountain, and just finding my center and my feet beneath me there is like none other.
Absolutely. We camped last summer in Governor Dodge, and we just bought a camper that we're picking up at the end of April. So I think we have 4 trips, one back to Governor Dodge. There. Yeah, I'm excited to get back there. And that's part of this camping journey will involve hiking. Do you use poles? I'm finding that my balance in my 50s. I hate to admit it, but I think I might need to buy some. Do you use some?
I do use them
Okay.
on bigger hikes.
Okay.
I don't tend to use them on the shorter hikes, but certainly if I'm going on vacation in the mountains, I do bring them along. What I found honestly more beneficial is to practice. I've seen time and time again that as we age, we do lose balance. And I noticed it in myself, especially with some injuries. And so I feel like doing things to promote balance also promotes healthy aging.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read a lot about longevity and like the better your balance is. I noticed it. I don't know if you've been to Devil's Lake at all for any hiking, but I noticed it there because they have such steep inclines
Yes.
going up
Yes.
and down. And I was like, oh, and I think too, like my vision is not as good as it used to be.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, and like when you're trying to really concentrate, for me, it's on things close up. And I don't know, the last time I was there, I made a comment to some girlfriends. I was like, any of you feeling like you don't have as good of balance? And they're like, well, we're not out there like traversing rocks, so we don't really notice it. One person said yes, but the rest were kind of like, well, I'm not climbing up and down big boulders, so I don't have that feeling. But I haven't been out to Colorado in my 50s yet. I've only been to Colorado in the summer, which I think is amazing. I've been there multiple times in the summer and I absolutely love it. But it would be interesting to compare that hiking to just some of the hiking that I've done locally as well. Do you have favorite spots in Colorado that you've been? I know you mentioned Steamboat Springs.
Gosh, there's so many trails out there. It's near impossible. I mean,
Hmm.
you'd be hard pressed to repeat them unless you just wanted to or lived by one. But I think most recently I went out to the Golden area and hiked in Golden State Park,
Okay.
uh, which had some lovely trails, but no favorites.
Okay.
All of them.
Is
All
that
of them.
near, isn't Golden near Red Rocks
It is. Yeah.
Amphitheater? Okay, because I can't remember which birthday it was, but it was a bucket list item to see a concert at Red Rocks. And so I remember being in Golden. I remember the archway, from it. And I was like, I bet that is near Red Rocks, which is another place to test your balance for sure.
Oh, yes.
And everybody's doing yoga on the stairs of the amphitheater and running up and down the stairs. That is a place to get fit. You see the bikers going up the hill.
Test your lung capacity coming from sea level.
Definitely, for sure. Even the people walking up to the concert that night, that was really interesting because of the altitude, and also it is a climb to get to the amphitheater. Like, it is a workout. I think I had to shed a layer. I did not plan for like the workout part of going to the concert, but some people were struggling. So
I've been
yeah, it's such a gorgeous area. And Garden of the Gods, I think I've been to out there as well. Oh, just so many beautiful places in Colorado. Like you said, you can't possibly narrow it down. Okay, so we definitely know all of the benefits like you've talked about, and balance is a huge one that I'm working on even in my weight training, just kind of like doing more exercises on one leg, paying more attention to that as part of cutting off aging at the pass, if you have any control over that. But yeah, that's just something that I've really noticed. I'm ready to talk to the listeners who are wanting to get out there, maybe try dabbling a little bit in this, what I'm going to call nature therapy, and try hiking a little bit. I'm still definitely a newbie. And that's why I seek out people who know more than I do, because that's what I talk about on this podcast is if you do want to try something and incorporate it more into your life, you need to learn from those who are experienced in it. And so Tracy is going to help us with that today. She has some optional homework or action steps for us if we're ready to incorporate this into our lives. So help us, those of us who want to be better at this, Tracy.
All right. So my thought is jot down one or more areas of your life that you want to improve on, and then note how you would like to see it improve on a piece of paper, in a journal, whatever works for you. And try to really embody all the ways that you would feel, the thoughts that you'd think, the ways you'd spend your days when your health was improved in this way, how you would carry yourself, things like that. Just really feel into that experience. After that, rate your current stress level from 1 to 10. Note how you're currently feeling physically, mentally, emotionally. Jot those things down as well. After you've done that, find a place to get outside for 5 minutes or more, preferably with some dirt on the trail, some trees, some grasses, something in nature. Commit to that day and time, put your shoes on, and make your way to the trail. Head out in whatever pace, whatever direction feels comfortable for you. As you're walking, just take note of the following. So take note of how you feel physically and mentally at different points on the hike. Noticing what moments of peace or clarity you've experienced during the time on the trail. Notice how it feels to be surrounded by nature and how that affects your mindset and your emotions. Once you're done, go ahead and rate the stress level again, 1 to 10, noting again how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. Take notes on all of it. Take some time to read through your journal entries from before, during, and after your hike, and then reflect on how the experience helped you to reduce your stress, improved your mood, how it strengthened your physical health, or anything else that you might have noticed along the way.
That's awesome. So I've been seeing, I don't know if it's an app but there's like something now in the whole have a smartwatch that tells you when to stand up and everything. But I've been noticing on social media that these campaigns to go out and touch grass. Like you've been inside long enough, you need to go out and put your feet in the grass. And I'm like, yes, I did this morning challenge years ago. Well, probably right after the pandemic, maybe 2021 or something, with a local health company. And it was like the morning challenge. The best ways to start your day were to get that morning sunlight, right? And to go out and do some grounding and to get some movement and to do some journaling. I never felt better than when I was doing that. And I think it's so hard for people because it's hard to tell an immediate benefit, right? Like if you go for a run, you have those immediate endorphins and you feel, energized and you feel accomplished. It's hard when you're standing in the sunlight, putting your feet in the grass, journaling, it's hard to immediately, I think, see the benefits, but the compounding of doing that day after day for this challenge, it was so beneficial. And unfortunately, as you know from living in Iowa and Wisconsin, that is very hard to do year round. So I look forward to those times that I can get my feet in the grass. But I think that's so interesting now, they're finding the research and it takes a little bit of time for it to catch up. But they are finding, just exactly what you're talking about today is we have to find time to get out and away from our screens, to get outside, to do these things to benefit our health. So I appreciate your message with that so much. And also, I think as you were just talking right there, I'm like, I can see why people seek you out. You have a very calming presence, right? You're very self-assured. So if people want to connect with you a little bit more, I will, like I said, put your website and any other places in the show notes. But besides your website, is there any place people can connect with you, or is that the best place?
They can definitely connect with me on social media. I think almost every place is Tranquil Nurse Coach is my handle.
Okay. Yeah, I can see you're very tranquil. Definitely. Yes, I will share that in the show notes. Like I said, if you're interested in learning more about what Tracy does and connecting with her about her journey at all. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with as we get ready to maybe incorporate this into our lives?
Yeah, I would say, Rachel, just start. You indicated a fear of doing the 12-hour walk, but just start. It doesn't matter how in shape you are. It doesn't matter what clothes you wear. If you have to start small, just start somewhere, even if it's just putting your shoes by the door. Maybe that's your first step, your shoes by the door for a week. And then after a week, you're like, okay, I'm going to put the shoes on, all those little baby steps will eventually lead you.
Absolutely. You mentioned some of the key words that I use a lot in this journey, and we talk about baby steps a lot, and starting before it's perfect, right? Just starting messy. And one small step will lead you to the next, and eventually you'll be there and you'll look back and say, oh, that wasn't so bad. So I really appreciate that wisdom. And I'm so happy to have this chance to connect with you, even though we're not meeting in person. I get to see your face, when you meet people on social media, you never quite know, but I've really enjoyed our time together today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel, for having me. So appreciate it.
Tracy's journey is a reminder that sometimes the hardest transitions lead to the most fulfilling paths, whether it's shifting careers, navigating personal hardships, or simply lacing up your boots and hitting the trail. Growth happens when we step outside our comfort zones. If her story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. What small step can you take toward your own healing or reinvention? In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe, leave me a rate, and I love those reviews. Keep them coming, and share this episode with someone you think might need to hear it. I think in April, I'm going to be making a decision to go back to one episode a week, just as I transition into my new job, which you'll be hearing about soon. And I'd like to focus on my Patreon as well. Feel like I haven't had as much time to devote there. So I encourage you, if you're looking for more content than just one episode a week, or you're looking for more personal content, please check out my Live and Learn Patreon. It's very easy. You just go to patreon.com/liveandlearn. You can become a member for just $5 a month, or you can purchase single episodes that interest you. Always, I have content on Instagram and Facebook, as well as my Life's Next Lesson Plan YouTube, where I've been filming a video a day as I count down my final days in the classroom. I've also started an Empty Nest playlist there. And at the end of April, when we pick up our Luna Rover camper, I'll be starting a playlist for all things camping content as well. In the meantime, you can always check out our website at lifesnextlessonplan.com, and I can't wait to see you back here for the next episode.